Quiet man in classroom 3. When Ada moved to a new neighborhood, the first thing she looked for was a good school for her son. The area had several private schools, each promising discipline, good results, and small class sizes. After visiting 2 of them, she chose one that looked organized and calm. The compound was neat, the classrooms freshly painted, and the teachers seemed polite. Her son, Tunde, was 7 years old and starting primary 2. On the first morning, Ada walked him to his classroom before leaving for work. The teacher stood near the door greeting the children. His name was Mr. Karim. He was tall and thin, with a quiet voice that barely rose above a whisper. His smile was polite but distant. When Ada shook his hand, she noticed something odd. His hand felt unusually cold despite the warm afternoon heat. It was a small detail, but it stayed in her mind. As they walked away, Tunde held her arm tightly. "Mom, I don't like that teacher," he said quietly. Ada asked why. Tunde simply said, "He looks at us too long." She assumed he was nervous about starting a new class and told him he would get used to it. But the changes started within a week. Tunde began waking up at night. At first, it was only once or twice, but soon it became every night. He said he dreamed about his classroom even when he was asleep at home. In the dreams, the teacher would stand at the front of the class and call his name repeatedly. Sometimes the classroom would be empty except for him. Other times the other children would be sitting quietly with their heads down while the teacher walked slowly between the desks. Ada tried to calm him and assumed it was stress from adjusting to a new school. Then she noticed that Tunde began avoiding his homework. He had always been an energetic child, but he suddenly became quiet. He also complained of being tired almost every afternoon. One morning while helping him dress for school, Ada saw faint marks on his arm. They looked like thin scratches. She asked what happened. Tunde said he got them while cleaning the classroom floor after school. When Ada asked why he was cleaning floors, he said the teacher sometimes asked a few children to stay behind after lessons. According to Tunde, the teacher said they were special helpers. That explanation didn't sit well with her. The following week, Ada arrived early at the school to pick him up. She stood near the classroom window while the lesson was still going on. Inside, Mr. Karim stood at the front of the class speaking quietly. Most of the children had their heads resting on their desks. It looked less like a normal lesson and more like the children were asleep. Tunde was awake but staring blankly at the teacher. Ada felt uneasy watching it. Later that day she asked Tunde why the children were sleeping during class. He said the teacher sometimes asked them to close their eyes and remain still so they could focus. Tunde also mentioned something else. The teacher often chose the same few children for these exercises. The quiet ones. The obedient ones. Ada decided to speak with another parent she occasionally greeted at the school gate. The woman hesitated before answering her questions. Eventually she admitted that her daughter used to complain about the same teacher. The girl often said she felt heavy during lessons, as if she couldn't move. She also had frequent nightmares about someone calling her name from the classroom. The parent had ignored it at the time. But her daughter had recently fallen sick and been absent from school for weeks. That conversation made Ada uncomfortable. The next morning, she searched through Tunde's school bag while preparing his lunch. Inside the front pocket she found something unusual. It was a thin piece of thread tied into several tight knots. When she asked Tunde about it, he said the teacher gave it to him. He said it helps us learn faster, the boy explained. Ada threw it away immediately. Later that week she decided to observe the class again from outside. The classroom door was partly closed, but she could still see through the glass panel. Mr. Karim was standing alone at the front of the room. The children had their heads down again. But what caught her attention was the teacher's reflection on the classroom board. His shadow moved differently from his body. It shifted slightly even when he stood still. Ada stepped away from the window quickly. The following day she went to the school office and informed them that she was transferring Tunde to another school. The administrator asked several questions but eventually accepted the withdrawal. When Ada was leaving the compound with her son, Mr. Karim happened to be standing near the corridor. He watched them quietly. Then he said something in a calm voice. "Some students leave the classroom," he said, "but the classroom doesn't always leave them." Ada didn't respond. She simply took Tunde home. For a few days, things improved. Tunde slept better and returned to his usual cheerful behavior. Then something unexpected happened. The school announced that Mr. Karim had disappeared. According to the staff, he never returned after the weekend. His desk was still arranged neatly in the classroom, and none of his personal records could be verified. Some parents later claimed their children had also been complaining about unusual dreams and exhaustion during his lessons. A few weeks later the school quietly replaced him and tried to move on. Ada never returned to that place again. Tunde eventually joined another school and did well there. But years later, whenever someone with a very soft voice tried to speak to him for too long, he would grow uncomfortable and change the subject. Ada never fully understood what happened in that classroom. But she learned something important. When children say something feels wrong, it is often worth listening carefully. Sometimes the smallest warnings appear in ordinary places. Even in a classroom.